Hey guys, welcome back to Sports Spectrum. I am Jason Romano. We are the intersection of sports and faith. And whenever you can get a guy like Bubba Watson on the show, you say yes. And he's got a brand new book out. It's called Up and Down: Victories and Struggles in the Course of Life. It releases November 5th, 2021. And Bubba is gracious enough to give us some time here today on the show. How you doing, Bubba? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Yeah, this is a privilege and honor, man. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's good to have you here. Congrats on the book. Let's just go right into the book. And the very first thing you write in your new book, Up and Down, is that this is not a typical golf book. Why don't you kind of explain that a little bit before we get going here?
This talks about life. I mean, this talks about my struggles. It talks about we start at one period, we go forward, we go backwards, we go everywhere. And I try to be transparent. I try to tell everything like it is, the truth, and the negatives and the positives. And I wanted people to see that everybody's human. Everybody has some flaws or some issues, or however you want to word it. However, I don't know how to word it nicely, but we all have some issues, and we got to share. And so that's really what I kind of want to put in the book. So it inspires people to talk more and get and seek help, I guess.
Yeah. And as I was reading, you get to chapter 1 right away, and it starts off with rock bottom. So you go there right away. You don't let us read through a little bit of the good stuff. You go right to the rock bottom part. Take us through that moment and what was transpiring, why it was so important for you to share that rock bottom moment in the beginning of the book with the public.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I wanted people to see where I was. I wanted people to try to dive in and catch them right away and realize, like, I'm human. Just because I've won tournaments, I've won the Masters, that's only part of me, right? That's a small piece of who Bubba Watson is. And so
Yeah.
I wanted people to realize, for me to get help, I had to hit rock bottom. Hopefully that is the rock bottom. Hopefully I don't get there again. Hopefully I've caught myself enough to get better. But so I look at this scale. There's things going on. We don't have enough time in the show for therapy, but
Sure.
there's things going on in the head, and it's eating me. Basically, it's from the inside. Stress and anxiety is just eating away at me, right? And so I go from anywhere from 200 to 190. That's where I fluctuate, right? Depending on how many bags of chips I ate that weekend. And so,
Sure.
yeah, Doritos are phenomenal. But and so now I'm looking at this scale. It's at 162. And all I could think about is, I've done the blood work. I've done the stress test. I've done all these things, and my body says I'm healthy. But that's just your body, right? That's not your mind. That's your body, your organs, your everything that you could possibly check is fine. But there's obviously something. You can't be eating and losing weight and while you're healthy, or I didn't think you could. And so when I see 162, my bed is roughly 12 feet to 15 feet away from my scale. So I walk around the corner, around the room, and now I'm looking at my bed, and I just fall to my knees. And I remember thinking, flashing back to 2010, my dad passing away. And I remember bathing my dad with 3 days, at the time we didn't know, but 3 days before he passed, bathing my dad. And again, a grown man myself, thinking I would never bathe a grown man like this, right? But then it's your dad, and then your dad's hurting, your dad's, sick. And so, I remember now that picture's in my head. My dad was down to around roughly 90 pounds. And so I'm like, wait, I'm going that way. Like, something's not right here. I'm going that direction. And so then I remember thinking, my wife's in the other room, my kids are in the other room. And so how am I going to come out of this? And, I basically said, hey, take me now. I can't deal. I'm not strong enough to deal with this on my own. I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
And I said, so take me now, instead of put me through it. And so I wanted to hit home with everybody that life is real and life is very difficult. It doesn't matter about the hook shot. It doesn't matter about winning the Masters again. It doesn't matter about any of that stuff. There's other things that are more important. And lucky for me, I have a good team around me, a beautiful wife around me that helped me come out of it.
And you almost quit golf, right? I mean, that's the whole point of the rock bottom, is you were just about done with the sport that everybody knows you for, the sport that you've loved and been such a, big part of people's homes, watching you, 2-time Masters champ, as you mentioned. That was almost goodbye, right? You just didn't want to do it anymore.
Because the first glance, right? You're trying to find, it's like a sport, right? It's you're trying to find what works for you, what causes you to win, what causes you to get better. And so now I'm looking at my life going, okay, what's causing me this? What is the main part of this? Golf is a piece of it, but there's a lot more to it. It's not just golf, right? It's not 100% golf's fault. And that seems weird to say that, but it wasn't
Sure.
golf's fault that I was doing this. It was my own fault and mentally. And so when I asked my wife, I said, what if I just quit? I said, that'll take away stress. That'll take away some anxieties. I'll just be at home, be a stay-at-home dad. And she said, you love the game too much. And so she's the one that, again, like I said, the right team around me. She's the leader. She's the one that's the closest to me. And so I dug deep and realized that it wasn't just golf. Golf was helping it, but not the start of it or the cause of it. It was a lot of other things. And so, yeah, I mean, it was one of those moments, you have to look in the mirror and say, do I need to quit golf? And my wife was like, no, you love it. Why would you quit? And so
Mm.
that's what happened.
Well, take me through the faith aspect of all this, your faith in the Lord. You're very bold and people know you have a strong faith in God. You don't shy away from that. But when you're going through these difficult moments, these private moments together, what's that sort of wrestling or maybe just that connection that you and the Lord are having here as you're going through this?
Yeah. And so the beautiful thing of this, and obviously I've learned from losing, I've learned from the negative. It's easy to not learn from winning, right? And so when I was sitting on my knees, leaning on my bed at 162, um, saying, take me now. Then I started thinking, what got me off the floor was my wife's in the other room. If the Lord came to me and spoke to me and said, you got 10 minutes to live, it needs to be the best 10 minutes I give my wife. I need to tell her how much I appreciate her, how much she's did for me, what she led me to the Lord. And then I need to tell her that there's going to be a great man better than me that she'll find. And then I had to do the same thing with my kids. And so then I said, hold on a second. I had some stomach issues going on at the same time, some pains. And so I said, this is either the longest heart attack that's ever happened in the history of man, or there's something else going on and I'm not passing away. So then I was like, if I have 30 minutes, if I have a day, if I have 10 weeks, if I have 3 months. So that's what kind of get me going. It was me talking to myself in my head and listening to myself and understanding. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm definitely not perfect by any means. We've got internet footage to prove that, but um, I'm going in the right direction. And so when I got off that floor, it's like I made a promise to myself, made a promise to the Lord, made a promise to my wife and my team. I'm going to go forward and I'm going to try to go be better. I'm going to have bad moments, but hopefully I learn from those and I go on. But now I can catch myself, and we can catch myself when I get overwhelmed and I need to talk about it. So me and my wife, the faith aspect of it helped me and my wife communicate better. We just passed 17 years of marriage, but now it's more communication, more talking about her problems. She can't just be there and listen to me cry all the time. I have to let her cry to me too, right? And so, it's just it was so much negative, but we came out of it, I think, better as a couple. And me personally, as a person, I came out better. And without my wife, meeting my wife in 2001, shoot, who knows where I would be.
Well, that's where I want to go, Bubba, because I wanted to go back a little bit because you document it so well. And I've read the story. Like, you did not grow up in a Christian home. So faith and
Mm.
church and Jesus, none of this is familiar for you until you get into that college time. Take us through that.
Yeah. So a girl, in the book, a girl took a chance and asked me to go to Wednesday night. I guess it's kids night or teen night at the church in Baghdad. And I went to teen night, asked the Lord, these are a lot of my friends from high school, asked the Lord into my heart and my mind and asked for forgiveness. But I didn't really do anything with that, right? You say it and then you kind of walk away from it. Then I went to University of Georgia after junior college, went up there and after a year and a half, 2 years of Georgia, Angie came into my life and she got hurt in the WNBA.
Mm.
And I remember talking to her. I was playing basketball. I love basketball. So I was playing basketball with some of the girls on the UGA team. And Angie happened to walk in with crutches. And over the next week or so, I met her a couple of times or talked to her a couple of times and finally got courage enough to hang out with her and ask her out. And I could see with the way her speech was and the way she was communicating, I could see she was almost two different people, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And so I asked her, and she said she grew up in the church, and she wants to be a woman of faith and a woman of being Christ-like and all these things. And I said, well, I said a prayer a few years ago, but I would love to do that as a man. And so then that kind of hit it off. And, so ever since then, I'm very slow. She had already had so much teaching, she could get there faster than me, but it
Yeah.
was all new to me. And like it says in the book, we were having sex before, and then we stopped it. We got married, and then we when I say me, I've had to like learn faster or try to. And there's some downfalls, and we can document it throughout the Golf Channel and internet where I've made some mistakes. But you learn
Sure.
from it and grow from it. And I probably wouldn't have been prepared in 2007, 2006, 2008. I wouldn't have been prepared for where I was in 15 and 16 without that faith background. And my wife sticking to her guns and saying who she wanted to be, and me listening. And now I'm trying to be the leader she needs and not her be the leader that I need.
Sure. Yeah. Bubba Watson's here on Sports Spectrum with us. His new book is called Up and Down: Victories and Struggles in the Course of Life. It releases November 5th, 2021. What has that been like for you, kind of living up a very public life, obviously, as a golfer and having a lot of success, but also a public figure who has professed a faith in Christ? What has that been like for you? All eyes on you. It can make it difficult sometimes to be bold in your stance for the Lord. What's that process been like for you from the perspective of being a public figure and a follower of Christ?
Yeah, I mean, this is all part of the book, right? This is all part of my life. It's very difficult trying to be the man I want to be, and then somehow be the best player I can be on the golf course. Like it's almost two different people, and I didn't know how to. I was so focused on being the best golfer I could be, it lost focus over here.
Hmm.
And then when I try to focus over here, I lose focus on being a golfer. I don't know how to put it all together. So that's part of my struggle, my mental struggles throughout my course of my career. And then being the husband I need to be, and the dad, the parent I need to be. So yeah, this is if you knew the answer, I would love for you to share it with me. But I'm trying. But then when this happened in 2015 and 16, parts of 17, I knew I wanted to change, and I want to do things differently. The be the light, and I wanted to be the light of change. And the change is I do this sport so I can do these other things, and these other things are giving back to charities, giving back to my community, helping other people. My talent might not be able to give somebody a hug and encourage them, but my talent is helping pack backpacks at Christmas time, to give out presents, to give people hope, and maybe pay for some of those presents. And so there's different ways to help. And so I'm using golf now in a different way to help me help other people. And I think that's kind of the talent that God has given me, this golf skill, so I can do other things and help other people. And it took me a while to learn that. When I got on the tour in 06, it was all about me, right? Golf is all about one person. It's all about me. And so I've had to learn that selfishly to get the selfishness out of there and try to learn that way. And again, like I said, it's a learning. I'm learning on the go. I'm trying to get better. And I've started reading more books. I don't like reading, so I've started reading more books. Right now I'm in the book called Awe,
Okay.
instead of awe of self, all of God and
Yeah.
the creations that he's created. And so I'm learning, and hopefully we're on the right path and going forward.
Well, it's good. You don't like reading books necessarily, but you wrote one, and that's a pretty cool thing as well. I'm curious for you, what does discipleship look like during a very long golf season? And I don't just mean discipleship as far as, getting in God's word, which is part of discipleship, but just the
Yeah.
fellowship and encouragement, accountability, all of that.
Mhm.
What does that look like for you, and maybe how it's evolved over your golfing career over the last decade or so?
Yeah, it's so on tour. There's been a group, different organizations have come out and lead Bible study on PJ Tour, and different organizations have come out at different times. They always work together.
Sure.
And then right now, starting on Thursdays and Fridays, there's a group of about 12 guys, and then the leader, and then so 12 golfers on the PGA Tour. We get together, we read a chapter a week of a book. We find a book and read a chapter a week, and then we discuss it on a talk like this, right?
Yeah.
And we can see, and we can encourage one another, because we're all going through the same thing, the travel schedule, missing your families, whatever it is. And so we can encourage one another and be there and support one another. And my whole thing is not about how many three putts you had, or did you miss the cut or make the cut. It's about who you are, where you're going, and all those things. Golf is just a bonus for us, right? And so yeah, the discipleship part, you have people. I've been blessed enough, like I said, to help start a couple of churches, all in the United States somewhere.
Yeah.
So I have those pastors that I can reach out to, that they reach out to me, that I trust, are good friends of mine, my local pastor. So yeah, when I'm at different parts of the country, there's times where I can meet with people and see people that are doing God's work, right? And then I get to hear and tell them my issues, and then I get to listen to their issues. And we try to, same thing with Ted Scott, with Teddy being on my bag for 15 years, a godly man that he is. He led me for 15 years and showed me how to be a dad, showed me how to be a husband, because he's older, by the way. And so he showed me how to be a dad. He showed me how to be a husband. He showed me how to be a better Christ follower, and 15 years of that. So I'm getting the discipleship all around me, even though it doesn't look like it sometimes. But there's a lot of people around me that have helped me tremendously.
If I went back like 30 years ago, or even 20 years ago, we'll say, and told you that you'd be starting 2 churches and helping plant a couple of churches, what would you have said?
I would have laughed at you.
Yeah.
Because again, this is really sad to say, but when I was a kid growing up, all I could think about in church, especially for me, was you got to dress a certain way, you got to act a certain way, you couldn't have fun, and
right.
All of that is not true, as I learned. But that's me as a teenager, right? Not a very mature teenager.
None of us are, right? I mean, that's just the way it is true. As teenagers. In your book, you talk about the good side and bad side of sudden celebrity, which I thought was really interesting, because it's one thing to be in the PGA Tour. It's another thing to win the Masters and to win it twice. And so suddenly that sudden celebrity comes upon you. And I told you before we started, like, I met you briefly when I was working at ESPN, and you were over in Scottsdale, and we were set up for our Super Bowl coverage. And there's a reason why Hannah Storm wants to have Bubba Watson on, set at Sports Center at the Super Bowl, because sudden celebrity is kind of kicking in and coming at you. Explain that to our audience, if you could, because most people don't see the bad side, first of all, to becoming famous or becoming a celebrity, but also the good side is what we all think and strive for. And you said there's a good side and a bad side to this.
Well, yes. First of all, again, like we've talked about, I don't know the Bible. And I think the Bible, if you're a Christian or non-Christian, it's a very good outline how to live life.
I would agree.
It doesn't matter if you're Christian or not, right? And and it's, you love all people, and you have to walk in somebody's shoes before you shouldn't judge anyway. But and so without having that knowledge, and then my parents, where I come from, Baghdad, Florida. My name is Bubba. Never had a golf lesson, and then you win a couple tournaments here and there, and then you throw in the Masters. You hit this massive hook shot, and you do these things, and then they hand you this green jacket, which is something that you've just dreamed about, and you always thought it was just a dream, and then it actually happened. And then sponsors start pulling at you, and people start pulling at you, and more fans, and then more cameras. And as we know in this day and age, cameras can hurt somebody real fast,
yes.
which it needs to, because if people have some issues, maybe not hurt them that bad, but let's try to help those people, right? That they get caught on camera. And and so, that's the thing that's scary now. And you were talking about earlier, is like, I don't travel now by myself. If I'm going somewhere, I always have somebody by my side, because I don't want anybody to ever lie and say Bubba did this, or Bubba said this to me, or Bubba did that. It's harder to lie about somebody when you have somebody next to you. And so I always watch myself now. I try to watch myself and be careful. So I didn't know those things at first. You just think like fame is awesome. That's what we all think. Famous is going to be fun. You get to do all these cool things, like go to the Super Bowls and go to World Series and go to NBA championships. And then the camera sticks in your face, or the camera sticks in your face when you play bad. And then you say something because of the heat of the moment, right? You just got finished of 5 hours of golf, and then you say something, and people like twist it and turn it. And positivity doesn't sell. Nobody cares about how many charity dollars I give away each year, right? That's not clickbait. And
Right.
so, now they want the negative. They want to see me breaking clubs and throwing stuff so they can make more money, or they can get more clicks and be more famous and do this and that. And so it's a vicious cycle. And so I didn't know that at first, and I'm still learning. And so, yeah, I mean, when I try to go to, like I've always said, when I try to go to Walmart, adopting my son first 2 weeks before the Masters, and then winning the Masters 2 weeks later. I mean,
Yeah.
you're talking about your world upside down.
Right.
Two great things, but just overwhelming things. And so
Yes.
now trying to go to Walmart as Masters champion, who on every TV is your face, and now your hometown, everybody knows who you are. And I just need to get some diaper. I need to get some baby food. I just need to get some baby powder. Can I just run here? My wife's at home with my kid. And it doesn't work that way. And which is understandable. I get it. People want to meet people that they look up to, or they saw win, or they see do some great things, in that moment. And I've done it myself. I've taken pictures with guys too, or girls too, that I thought that I looked up to.
Sure.
I mean, I've stopped Tim Tebow many times and asked for a picture. And so, when I do that, then I have to remember, like, hey, if I do that, well, why is it's okay if somebody else does that to me then? And so, it's a learning process, and it's never going to get easy. Life is not easy, as the Bible tells us, our guideline book tells us.
That's right.
That life is hard, and especially when you say you're a Christian, it's even harder, because people look at you differently. They put you on a pedestal, and that's not right, because I'm just human. And the same thing when you become Masters champion, you put on a pedestal, and they think that you know all, and they think that you have the right things to say to change the world, and they think you should perform every week. And you can't do that. We're human beings. We fail every day. I hate to break that to everybody, but we do.
No, you said that a few times, and it's a good reminder, I think, for all of us to hear. And I think what you said is actually a really good reminder too. Like, not just that we're human and we're flawed, but that remembering when, and everybody kind of has a celebrity moment. It could be random or it could be intentional, that they get to meet someone famous or whatever. Just remember that they're people as well. And it's great to take pictures and great to take selfies, but remember that they're human, and maybe Bubba Watson's just trying to buy some diapers for his kids. And you mentioned the adoption. That's really where I want to kind of wind down here in our conversation, because I love that you have not one, but two adoption stories. And, we're such a big proponent of adoption here, certainly at Sports Spectrum. Caleb and Dakota, right, are your two adopted children. I'd love to hear the stories of why adoption was an option for you and for your wife.
So again, this is it's God's plan, right? And so I remember some people, my wife or me, depending on who you talk to, if it's the first date or second date. And so we're sitting in the car, and I remember she's sitting in the driver's seat and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and she says, I just want to be upfront with you. And when she's telling me this, I got to set the story. She's already in the WNBA. She's rehabbing at University of Georgia. I'm at my last semester, so I'm turning pro. I think I've already turned pro, but on the mini tours. And so I'm turning pro, going to start traveling. She's already rehabbing and played in the WNBA, and she's going to go overseas. So we're already past this puppy love, this high school love stuff. And so she goes, I got to be upfront with you. I can't have children. And I said, I remember just looking at her, and I said, God always has a plan. If God wants us to have a family, we can have a family. I wasn't even thinking adoption. Again, like I was said, at this moment, I just told her that I want to commit myself to following Jesus. Right. And I'm still new to it, but it hit me. It wasn't even I just turned to her and said, we can easily have, it wasn't about anything else, except I was just telling her there's many ways to have a children. And so adoption was obviously always on our mind. We started the process in 2008, but we changed houses in 2008. So when you change states, it makes it harder. You have to go through a different agency or different laws. And so we're out in Arizona, and then so now 2009, after the season, we always do it during the winter because that's their time to do a lot of stuff. Sure. And so then I got a phone call from my dad in 2009 about he has throat cancer. So that stopped the process there during the winter, because that was in November when he told me. And then 2010, after the season, is when he passed away. So just a lot of hiccups in the road, right? Good, bad and good, but some hiccups. And so 2011 comes around and we got turned down. So now we start the process again. You know, we're kind of over my dad and trying to regain our momentum as a couple. And so we started the process again. And so 2011, we got turned down. We had a picture of a kid in our house that we took care of him for about 3 to 4 days. And we thought this was going to be our child, and didn't work out. Some things happened. And then another thing happened. I remember the girl picking another couple because that couple was closer to her. And I get that, because there's always, you always have that feeling that you're going to be able to meet up with your child again, right? I'm taking a wild guess. That's what the answer was. Yeah. And I don't think it's because my wife's not a good mom, but I just think it's, there's reasons why you pick some other family. And then I remember in Orlando, we're at Bay Hill, 2012, and I'm playing well. I think I won LA. Then I finished second or top 4 at Miami and Doral. Now it's Bay Hill, and Bay Hill is always, give or take, at this time was 2 weeks before the Masters. So there's another tournament than the Masters. And they called us on a Monday night and they said, hey, sorry, this lady has picked another family. So it was our 3rd time. And my wife turns to me and says, why am I not fit to be a mom? And I'm like, oh my gosh, how are you supposed to look at your wife? I can't even look at her. Like, how am I supposed to do this? Yeah. So obviously we cried there, and I said, look, you're fine. It's just we're good. And so the next morning, now Tuesday morning, that was Monday night. So now Tuesday morning, we get a random call from an organization and said, hey, there's this child, South Florida. And we were like, well, we're in Orlando. And so it's perfect. And then they said, well, you need to get the baby now. And we're like, so now we're like, well, hold on a second. We can't get the baby because I'm about to start this tournament. If I pull out of this tournament, then I've got to tell them why. And they're going to ask if I'm injured. And, just, again, it goes back to the mental stuff. Like, it just, you have to start doing your life based on all these other things that you shouldn't have to, but being somewhat famous and just won a tournament, my 3rd tournament in a couple years or whatever, 4th tournament in a couple years. So it's just, now you answer different questions that I don't know why, but we do, because we all want to know, right? And so we asked that lady, so she flew from her organization in California. She flew to South Florida, watched the baby for give or take 5 days. Random story, it's in the book, but I just like talking, so I got to tell you. But
please.
So we're in Orlando. We know that this baby now can't leave the state of Florida, because now we live in Arizona. Florida laws are different, so we've got to now do the adoption stuff all over again, a different state, and blah blah blah. So we're on a boat looking at houses. So this community, Isleworth, we're looking at houses, and we just happened to be doing this. And I took off the pro-am. I was already planning on taking off the pro-am at Bay Hill, so I took it off I did a sponsor value thing instead of the pro-am, and so we have Wednesday morning off. And I wasn't going to practice that day, so it's just me and my wife. And now we've just accepted this child that nobody in the world knows, right? There's 4 people in the world: the mom, this organization, and us 2. Yeah. And we're on this boat, and I said, hey, I know we're looking to buy a house, but is there any way we can lease a house that happens to be furnished? And this guy driving the boat, he's just driving the boat. He has no idea what's going on. And then the realtor's sitting in the boat with me, and the realtor says, we don't lease houses here. Like, this is not what we do. I said, okay, well, what if we were adopting a child and the child can't leave the state of Florida, and I need a house today that's furnished? He goes, right. We lease houses. We lease houses here. And, again, it's a God thing, God timing. Yeah. The owner of the place has a house that we can rent. The boat driver, who has no idea what's going on, asked if he could pray for us because he was a Christian. Wow. And 5 days later, Monday, I think Tiger Woods wins the tournament like he always does. I finished 4th. Then Monday morning, we go have lunch with the lady down in South Florida, and then the lawyer passes the baby over. It goes from the mom to the lawyer to us, and yeah, I mean, it was one of those craziest. It was this, again, it goes back to the sad moments, and then God's timing and the right child, the right moments, the right everything, how it all went down. And before I get to the Masters, I had to fly to Arizona to do some more adoption stuff. So I was only with Caleb for 3 days before I left to go to the Masters, before I won the Masters. And so I only got 3 days with him, a few hours, because I was practicing every day too, right? So I only got a few hours over 3 days with him before I left to go to the Masters. And I mean, I wouldn't write it any other way. I mean, it was a dream come true on all levels. But yeah, it was that one was wild, and Dakota's was just as wild too.
My
So
goodness. Yeah. I want to encourage everybody to go read Up and Down Victories and Struggles in the Course of Life, releasing November 5th. And there's more stories like this. And it certainly goes more in depth than the time that we have here in our conversation. I want to ask you one last question, Bubba. This book, I think, is a great resource, especially for men. As I'm reading through it and I'm thinking, man, there's a lot of guys that keep stuff within us and don't let it out. And you really let some stuff out here in this book. What encouragement would you have for them, or anyone really who might feel like the struggles are winning over the victories in their life right now? What encouragement would you have for them as they think about going forward? And certainly my encouragement is to pick up your book, but what encouragement would you have for them if they're listening right now?
wow, there's a lot of things here. As a Christian man, obviously you find a local church, and you try to get some help that way, with some great small groups or Bible studies or different things. Non-Christian man, I think that the thing was, it's like in the 70s and 80s, adoption was like a non-man thing. It was more of like, you didn't really want to talk about it. You want to kind of keep it quiet.
Mm.
And I think now with some people stepping up, we've seen it on tennis, we've seen it in gymnastics, we've seen it with Michael Phelps, we've seen it with Kevin Love. We've seen different people step up and talk about it. And I think it's more rampant in our world than we want to admit. And so we all want to feel love. And I don't feel less of a man because I'm sharing my deepest, darkest secrets with you. It's actually helping me to get it out.
Yeah.
If I let it eat me up, which I've proven, if I let it eat me up, I lose weight and scary weight and all these things. Luckily for me, I've never drank, I've never done drugs, I don't gamble. So luckily, though, the true, real negative things, I luckily passed on those. So I didn't go down that dark of a road. But I have the right people, and you have to discuss with my spouse of 17 years married, but 20 years together. If I'm not man enough to speak to her, what good is our relationship? And so I need to tell her my deepest, darkest secrets. And then Teddy was on the bag for 15 years. So I got to talk to him. I spent a lot of time with him. And then my team around me, and then finding the right men. You got to have at least 2 to 3 people in your life. It needs to be men that I can discuss, and not feel ashamed, and not them judge me. And so you've got to be able to voice it. And so my long answer is really voice it. You've got to get it out. And this book for me is about me releasing it instead of holding it in anymore. And I think that when people start releasing that and have somebody they can talk to and turn to a positive reinforcement and a positive thing, I think that's when you're going to see change. And that's where I think there's a lot of stuff going on that's going to just year after year is going to be more coming up about mental problems, mental health, stress related, anxiety related, that we already probably know behind closed doors it's happening, but it's going to come more to light. And, I just wanted to write the book to try to help. And if I help one person, if that's me or you or anybody, then the book was worth it.
Well, it's already helped me just reading through a pre-ordered copy, if you will. And, I know it's going to help a lot of people, Bubba. So listen, thanks for being here. Next time we'll have to talk a little football. We'll talk a little Georgia Bulldogs football and have maybe a little lighthearted conversation, but this was great. And I'm glad you wrote the book. I'm glad you're sharing what you're sharing, and all the best to you. Thanks for joining us here on Sports Spectrum.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Thank you very much.